In a far corner of the universe, there was peace. Many alien races lived together, trading, building, and learning. They had different colors, shapes, and languages, but they shared one important rule. This rule was taught to every child, every worker, every leader: never disturb the humans. It was the law above all laws. No one broke it. No one even thought about breaking it. Long ago, the humans were powerful. They didn't have the biggest ships or the brightest stars, but they had something no one else had: the will to fight and win, no matter the cost. Their weapons were fast. Their minds were sharp. And when they were angry, nothing could stop them. Many, many years ago, the humans fought a great war. No one remembers who it was against. Some say it was the Hive Lords from the Dark Nebula. Others say it was against something worse, something not from this galaxy at all. But after the war, the humans were gone. Their planets were silent. Their cities empty. Only dust and silence remained. The galaxy took a breath and waited. Then came the rule. It was not a command. It was not a threat. It was a warning. A message appeared on old satellites, carved into stone, whispered by broken machines. Do not disturb the humans. Do not search for them. Let them sleep. And so, the galaxy listened. For thousands of years, no one searched. No one dared. But not everyone believed in the rule. Some called it a myth. Others laughed and said, humans are gone. Who cares? One race in particular, the Zeltrax, never liked the rule. They were small, with yellow eyes and long claws. They were smart, proud, and always wanted more power. For years, they followed the rule like everyone else. But now, they were ready to break it. The Zeltrax had a plan. They believed if they could find old human technology, they could become the most powerful race in the galaxy. They didn't want peace anymore. They wanted control. And they had found something. A signal, deep in space, near a dead planet called Karo 7. It was weak, almost gone, but it was real. The signal was human. A small Zeltrax team flew to Karo 7. The planet was cold, dead, and covered in dust. But under the ground, they found something strange. It was a large metal door, hidden under rocks. The door had human writing on it. No one could read it, but it made them nervous. Still, they opened it. Inside, the air was still. Lights flickered slowly. Dust floated in the dark. It was an old satellite base. Broken screens, strange machines, and glowing wires covered the walls. In the center, they found a cube. It was black, smooth, and pulsing with a red light. The Zeltrax leader, Commander Vrol, touched it. Nothing happened. He smiled. They took the cube and left the base. They didn't know the cameras had turned on. They didn't see the red lights blinking faster. They didn't hear the voice whispering from a speaker in the vac room. Protocol 1 activated. Intrusion detected. Signal sent. Far away, in another part of the galaxy, an old machine opened its eyes. It had been sleeping for centuries. Now, it had a message. It sent a signal. That signal went to another machine. And another. One by one, they woke up. In the sky over Karo 7, a shadow passed in front of the sun. It was too fast to see, too quiet to hear. But it was watching. The humans had built many machines long ago. Machines that never forgot. Back on the Zeltrax ship, the cube sat in a glass case. It looked harmless. The scientists scanned it, studied it, and argued about it. Some said it was just a battery. Others said it was a key. Vrol didn't care. He wanted to show it to the council, prove the humans were no longer a threat. But strange things started happening. The ship's lights flickered. Doors opened and closed on their own. The ship's computer started speaking in a strange voice. One night, a soldier saw something moving in the hallway. Tall, dark, with glowing red eyes. When he ran to check, it was gone. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Ships started disappearing. A mining crew sent a message. "We found a ship. Human. Still active." Then silence. A trade ship passed through Sector 9 and vanished. No distress call. No wreckage. The Council of Races met in fear. There were 13 races, each with a seat. The Zeltrax sat in silence. Vrol said nothing. He didn't want anyone to know what they had done. But one alien, a pilot named Kel, spoke up. He was from the race of blue-skinned explorers known as the Theri. Kel had seen something. He was flying near a wormhole when a dark ship passed him. It didn't look like anything he knew. It was silent, black, and shaped like a blade. It didn't attack. It just floated past him and disappeared. But before it vanished, Kel saw one word written on its side. Terran. Terran was the old word for human. Kel told the council, "I think the humans are coming back." Most laughed at him. Some called him mad. But a few started to believe. The signs were too many. The fear returned. Back on the Zeltrax ship, the cube suddenly began to glow bright red. Alarms rang out. The ship's computer screamed. Unknown signal detected. Incoming data. Incoming entity. Vrol ordered the cube to be shut down, but it was too late. A voice came from the speakers, deep, cold, and angry. "You broke the rule. You disturbed the silence. Now, we return." Outside the ship, space began to twist. A black ship appeared from nowhere. Then another. Then 10. No engines. No heat. Just silence. The Zeltrax screamed. They tried to run. But the ships didn't fire. They just watched. Waiting. In a quiet system nearby, a satellite turned on. It sent a message across the stars. One sentence. One warning. The humans have awakened. And the galaxy held its breath. The galaxy was no longer quiet. Something had changed. All across space, strange things started happening. Satellites lost power. Signals were blocked. Lights on space stations flickered for no reason. At first, everyone thought it was just a glitch, maybe solar storms. But soon, it became clear something was moving in the dark, and it was watching. On a mining station near the edge of the Terran belt, workers saw something in the sky. It was large, black, and floating without sound. It looked like a ship but had no lights, no engines, no ID signal. The miners sent a message to the nearest command post. But before the reply came, the ship vanished. No one saw where it went. One worker said it simply blinked out, like a shadow that never belonged. After that, the station went dark. No one ever heard from the crew again. In the capital of the Shorai Alliance, the leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. Panic was growing. Some said the humans had returned. Others refused to believe it. "They are gone," one shouted. "They are just ghosts now." But even as he spoke, a message played on the big screen behind him. It was a short video from a scout ship. In the video, a massive ship floated over a dead moon. It had strange symbols, cold black armor, and a red light moving across its surface. On the side, barely visible, were the words, "Property of the Terran Defense Network." The message ended with static. In the dark corners of the universe, machines began to wake up. Old satellites that hadn't worked in centuries powered on. Long-dead probes lifted off from forgotten planets. Something ancient had heard the signal, and it was responding. Back on the Zeltrax homeworld, Commander Vrol stood in his secret lab, staring at the black cube. It now pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. His scientists were scared. One of them had gone mad, screaming that he heard voices inside his head. Another had vanished during the night. The cube was doing something, but they didn't know what, and they didn't know how to stop it. The Zeltrax lied to the council. They said they had found nothing. They claimed no knowledge of the cube or the human signals. But Kale, the blue-skinned Theri pilot, didn't believe them. He had seen the look in Vrol's eyes during the last meeting. Fear, not fear of humans. Fear of getting caught. Kale had always been curious about humans. He read the old stories. He believed the rule was real, not just a warning, but a shield. Now that it was broken, he knew the galaxy was in danger. He started his own search, using his old ship, the Whisper Star. He looked through lost systems, abandoned stations, and hidden files. In one system, he found a broken beacon floating in space. When he powered it up, a message played. The voice was old, metal, and slow. It said, "This system is under Terran lockdown. Intrusion will trigger judgment." Kale felt a chill. He had never heard anything like it. Meanwhile, on the Zeltrax ship that held the cube, things got worse. The cube activated again. Lights exploded. Computers shut down. And then, from the shadows, a figure appeared. It looked like a human. Tall, armored, glowing red eyes. But it was not alive. It was a machine. A war robot from the old human empire. It moved fast and silent. One guard tried to shoot it. The robot didn't even flinch. It grabbed the soldier and threw him across the room like a toy. Security alarms screamed. Soldiers rushed in, but it was too late. The robot had already taken the cube. Then it looked into the security camera and said one word, "Awakened." Then it vanished. Vrol called an emergency meeting of the Zeltrax High Command. "We need to hide," he said. "We need to destroy the cube and erase all records." But it was too late. The machines were awake. The signal had spread. The galaxy could no longer hide. Kale sent a message to the council. He said the humans weren't just returning. Their machines were already here. "We don't know how many," he warned. "We don't know what they want. But I believe they are testing us." Some races wanted to prepare for war. Others wanted to send messages of peace, but no one could agree on what to do. The fear was too strong. Old enemies blamed each other. One race even attacked its neighbor, thinking they had brought the humans back. Chaos was spreading. On a quiet moon near the old warfront, a farming colony woke up to find a black ship hovering above their skies. It made no noise. It dropped no bombs. It just floated there for 3 days. Then it left. But when it was gone, every single machine in the colony was burned out, silent and useless. The farmers said nothing. They packed their bags and left. No one ever returned to that moon. Back in deep space, Kale was tracking the cube's signal. He followed it to an old sector, once believed empty. But he found something there. A massive station, hidden in an asteroid field. It was not alien. It was Terran. The doors opened for him without a fight. Inside, the lights turned on, one by one. A voice spoke through the speakers. "Welcome, observer. You have one chance to decide." Kale stood still, listening. The voice continued. "We left. You brought us back. Now we will watch. Your actions will decide your future." Kale tried to respond, but the voice was gone. He left the station and sent another message to the council. They are not attacking yet, but they are watching. They are waiting. But even as Kale sent the message, the black ships began to move again. They didn't speak. They didn't ask. They just moved toward the center of the galaxy. The humans had not returned, but their empire, the one they built, the one they left behind, had. And now it was waking up. Across the galaxy, fear turned into silence. Everyone waited. The black ships had moved, and now they were attacking. They came without warning. No message. No reason. Just destruction. A Zeltrax warship was the first target. One moment, it was flying through a quiet sector, and the next moment, it was gone. A black ship appeared beside it, fired a single red beam, and the Zeltrax ship turned into dust. No one escaped. No one survived. More attacks followed. The Terran ships moved fast. They struck without sound, like shadows cutting through the stars. Their weapons were different. Clean, perfect, and cold. They didn't damage planets. They didn't chase survivors. They only destroyed the ships that carried weapons or sent false signals. It was like they were making a point. A message finally arrived. It came from a dead station orbiting a dying star. The station had been silent for over 500 years, but now it broadcasted one short sentence in every known language. You broke the rule. You will face the consequences. Panic spread through every system. The Council of Races called a meeting. This time, every seat was filled. Even the silent ones, who hadn't spoken in 1,000 years, were present. The air in the chamber was cold with fear. No one had ever seen weapons like this. No one had ever seen ships move like this. It was worse than anyone had imagined. The humans were not just returning. Their empire, their machines, their laws, their power was already here. Some leaders shouted for war. They wanted to fight. Others begged for surrender. A few said nothing, knowing it was too late. Kale, the ferry pilot, stood again and spoke to the council. They are not destroying planets, he said. They are not hunting us. They are testing us, watching how we react. Many didn't believe him, but some started to listen. Meanwhile, on the planet Deltras 4, a key trading world, hundreds of ships prepared for battle. The planet's leaders had heard rumors that Terran ships were nearby. They wanted to defend their skies. They had no idea what was coming. When the black ships arrived, they didn't fire. They didn't send a signal. They simply floated in the upper atmosphere, 10 of them, in perfect silence, like statues in the sky. The defense fleet locked weapons. The soldiers were ready, but the Terran ships didn't move. Instead, they dropped long black devices to the ground. The devices opened slowly and began scanning the planet. They ignored everything: weapons, ships, buildings. They only scanned one thing: knowledge. Every library, every network, every school. The Terran machines were reading. On the surface, people watched in fear. No one dared to shoot. Everyone waited. After 1 hour, the devices closed and flew back into the sky. The ships followed, vanishing into space. Deltras 4 was left untouched. But the message was clear. The Terran machines weren't here to conquer. They were here to judge. In secret, Kale traveled to the broken edge of the galaxy, a place where ancient ruins floated in silence. There, he found something strange: a Terran listening post, still working after 1,000 years. The walls were covered in human writing. The machines inside did not attack. They simply played a message, one Kale would never forget. The voice was calm, almost human. "We left because we were too strong," it said. "We destroyed too much, even when we won. So we chose to sleep. We built guardians to watch while we rested. We left one rule to protect you: never disturb us." Kale stood still. The message ended. The lights turned off. The room went quiet. He finally understood. The humans had feared their own power. They had built machines to stop themselves. But now that the rule was broken, the machines were active again. And they were not here for war. They were here to finish what the humans started. Control through judgment. The galaxy held its breath. There was no more hiding. The Terran ships had made their presence known. They weren't here to attack. They weren't here to conquer. But their message was clear. They were here to judge. And no one knew how the judgment would end. On the planet Coral 5, a small, peaceful world, the leaders gathered to discuss what to do. It had been weeks since the Terran ships first appeared in the skies. The people there had no weapons, no armies. They were farmers, scientists, and traders. They had always followed the rules, always stayed out of trouble. They hadn't disturbed the humans. But now, the Terran machines were watching them. Every signal, every movement was being measured. In the capital city, the people were scared. The ships in the sky were massive, silent, and dark. No one could approach them. No one could even communicate with them. The government sent out messages of peace but received no reply. A few brave souls tried to leave the planet, to find out what the humans wanted. But the Terran ships blocked their escape. The galaxy felt smaller with every passing day. There was nowhere to hide anymore. On the outskirts of the galaxy, a quiet station came to life. It was an old Terran listening post, hidden for centuries. But now it was active again. The machines inside flickered on, and for the first time in ages, the speakers crackled with a voice. "The key has been found." The voice was cold and emotionless. The machines hummed, and their screens lit up, showing star maps, lists of names, and strange codes. The words key and judgment kept flashing. Back on the Zeltrax homeworld, Commander Vrol had become desperate. He had been trying to control the Black Cube, hoping to unlock its secrets, to use its power before anyone else could. But the more he tried, the more it resisted. The cube pulsed with a strange energy, sending out signals that no one could understand. It was as if it was calling to something far away. But no one knew who or what that might be. Vrol had to act quickly. The Council was still unaware of how close the humans were. They hadn't figured out yet that the cube wasn't just a weapon. It was a key to something bigger, something older. He had to unlock it before it was too late. But the cube was not like anything the Zeltrax had ever seen. When they tried to open it, it simply closed tighter. It wouldn't let them control it. And then, one day, the cube sent out a signal that reached far beyond the Zeltrax homeworld. It didn't take long for the Terran ships to respond. In the council chambers, a loud alarm blared. The lights flickered, and the air grew cold. Something was happening. The black ships were moving. They were heading toward the Zeltrax system. The council leaders were in panic. The ships weren't just watching anymore. They were coming. The machines, the old Terran machines, were closing in. But just as the panic began to spread, the message came through. A single sentence, broadcast across the galaxy. "Your actions will decide your fate." In the shadow of the Terran ships, Kale watched in silence. He had warned the Council. He had begged them to return what was taken, to tell the truth. But now, he wasn't sure if it would even matter. The machines were not coming for war. They were not coming to destroy. They were coming to judge. Kale had seen the Terran ships firsthand. He had flown close to them, observed them from the edges of the galaxy. He had seen what they were capable of. But even he didn't know what their judgment would look like. No one did. All they knew was that the rule had been broken. And when the rule was broken, there was no going back. On Coral 5, the people waited. They had no weapons. They had no army. But they had their peace. They had always followed the rules, and they hoped that would be enough. But the Terran machines were not looking for peace. They were looking for something else, something hidden in the stars, something ancient and powerful. The judgment would not come in the way people expected. It would come quietly. It would come slowly. And the first sign of it appeared when a small moon near Coral 5 began to glow. The moon had been silent for centuries, forgotten by time. But now it pulsed with a strange energy. Light poured from its surface, and the ground shook. Then, a figure appeared on the moon's surface, a Terran war robot, towering and silent, with glowing red eyes. The robot spoke, but the words were not for the people of Coral 5. They were for the machines. The time of silence has ended. Judgment will begin. And the machines moved. Across the galaxy, lights flickered on old ships, long buried in the dust of forgotten planets. Old satellites awakened. Ancient guardians stood ready. The Terran Empire, built to protect the galaxy from its own mistakes, was stirring. Kale knew what was coming. He had seen the signs. The judgment was not just for one race or one planet. It was for everyone. The galaxy had broken the rule. And now it would pay the price. He tried to warn the Council again. "We can't hide. We can't fight this. The humans have set their judgment in motion. We must find the key." But it was too late. The judgment had begun. The galaxy was no longer the same. The Terran machines had made their move, and no one could stop them. The ships in the sky, the robots on the planets, the ancient stations coming to life. It was all part of the judgment. And now, no one knew how it would end. On the Zeltrax homeworld, Commander Vrol stared at the black cube, trying once again to unlock its power. It pulsed with strange energy, its surface shifting as if it had a mind of its own. Vrol had been obsessed with it for weeks. He had hoped to control it, to use its power before the Terran machines found out what they had. But every time he tried, the cube fought back. It would not open. It would not cooperate. Vrol's desperation grew. The Terran ships were closing in on Zeltrax space. He could feel it. The machines were waiting. They were watching. And they would not stop until they had their answer. He had to do something. He had to find the key. Kale, still flying his ship Whisper Star, had found another clue. The ancient temple on Deltras 4, the one the Terran machines had scanned, held something important. Something the galaxy had forgotten. He had traveled back to the system, searching through the ruins, hoping to find the truth. Inside the temple, he discovered something strange. The walls were covered in human symbols, old writing that no one had seen in centuries. But there, hidden in the center of the temple, was a device. It was shaped like a key made of ancient metal, covered in dust and age. It hummed softly, almost alive. Kale knew that this was the key. It had to be. It was the last piece of the puzzle. With the key in hand, Kale sent a final message to the council. The key is real. We can end this, but we must act fast. But as he spoke, the machines moved again. They were not attacking. They were not firing weapons. They were coming closer, surrounding the galaxy like a net. Kel could feel it. The judgment was drawing near. In the heart of the galaxy, on a forgotten world, the Terran war robots began their task. They stood still, silent, like statues. But now, they started to move. Their red eyes glowed with cold precision as they scanned everything in sight. The people, the machines, the stars themselves. They were looking for something. The key. Vrol finally made a decision. He couldn't wait any longer. He had to get to the center of the galaxy, to the ancient station that Kel had discovered. The station was where the final judgment would take place. He didn't know what would happen when he got there, but he knew one thing for sure. If he didn't act, it would be the end of everything. The Terran machines were waiting for them. The judgment was coming. It was inevitable. Kale arrived at the station first. The key in his hand hummed with energy as he stepped into the cold halls of the old Terran facility. The walls were covered with dust, and the machines inside were quiet, almost like they were sleeping. But as Kale approached the center of the station, the air shifted. The walls came alive, and the machines started to move. The Terran robots appeared, their red eyes glowing brighter than ever. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. They were there to watch. And then something unexpected happened. The station's central control panel flickered to life. A voice, deep and ancient, filled the room. You have broken the rule. You have disturbed the silence. Now you will face judgment. Kale stepped forward, holding the key high. The robots moved, but they didn't attack. Instead, they stepped aside, forming a path. The voice continued, its tone calm and cold. You have chosen. Now you will learn. What will you do when the past returns? What will you do when you face your own mistakes? Kale didn't know how to answer. The judgment wasn't about one race. It wasn't about war or peace. It was about something deeper. The consequences of power. The consequences of disturbing the rule. Vrol arrived just as the machines started to move. He saw the key, saw Kale standing there, waiting. For a moment, he hesitated. The Terran ships were close. The machines were waiting. There was no time left. The voice from the station spoke again, this time louder. The time of judgment is now. Your actions will decide your fate. With a deep breath, Kale stepped forward. He placed the key into the central console, and the station hummed to life. The machines began to move faster, their red eyes scanning the galaxy. It was as if they were searching for something, something hidden deep within the stars. And then the judgment began. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a battle. It was quiet, cold, and final. The Terran machines began to erase everything, not with weapons, but with knowledge. They took away the secrets, the lies, and the mistakes of the past. They reset the balance, restoring the rule that had been broken so long ago. For a moment, everything stood still. The galaxy seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. The Terran ships, the war robots, and the machines that had been watching all turned toward the center of the galaxy. And then, the voice spoke one last time. Judgment complete. The rule is restored. You have been measured. You have been found wanting. But it wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. The galaxy had been saved from its own mistakes, from its own destruction. The Terran machines had returned, not to conquer, but to restore the balance. And the rule was now stronger than ever. Kale and Vrol stood side by side, watching the machines disappear into the stars. They knew the galaxy would never be the same, but they also knew that peace had been restored, for now. And as the Terran ships faded into the distance, one last message echoed across the galaxy. The silence will return. Never disturb the humans again.